describes as Tehran's pursuit of nuclear weapons capability. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is not bound by the deal and reserves the right to defend itself.
Pressures on Iran are being lifted, they're being eased. And with the lifting of this pressure, this first step could very well be the last step. Without continued pressure, what incentive does the Iranian regime have to take serious steps that actually dismantle its nuclear weapons capability? Why would it dismantle the centrifuges and the plutonium reactor? None of this is covered in the agreement. They are left intact. So Israel is not bound by this agreement. We cannot and will not allow a regime that calls for the destruction of Israel to obtain the means to achieve this goal. We will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapons capability. Israel has many friends and allies, but when they're mistaken, it's my obligation to speak out clearly and openly and say so. It's my solemn responsibility to protect and defend the one and only Jewish state.
Well, let's go to our correspondent in Jerusalem, Matthew Kalman, who joins us now. Welcome, Matthew. So we saw and heard there Benjamin Netanyahu criticising the deal, calling it a historic mistake, and he has been pressuring Israel's strongest ally, the US. What does he really mean, and what will he do to achieve his goal?
Well, we can expect over the next 6 months that the Israeli government will have two major demands. The first one is to make sure that the sanctions regime, the set of economic sanctions imposed both by the UN Security Council and bilaterally between many countries and Iran, stays in place. The Israelis want to make sure that the pressure on Iran doesn't let up and that the economic sanctions don't crumble now that some of them have been eased. They want that pressure maintained because they say that without that pressure, the Iranians have no incentive, no reason to take the next step. And the second thing the Israelis are going to want to do is when they do take that next step in 6 months' time and the final agreement is concluded, the Israelis will be searching not just for a freeze in the Iranian nuclear program, but a rollback in the Iranian nuclear program. They want to see the dismantling of those centrifuges, they want to see the dismantling of the heavy water reactor at Arak, and they want to see the export of the existing nuclear material outside the borders of Iran so that they can't then move to full weaponization and enrichment in a short period of time. And the Israelis are going to be pushing very, very hard for those two things in particular, and in the background they're going to be keeping up the threat of a military strike from Israel alone if necessary to stop the Iranians.
What is the general feeling coming out of those sectors today?
Well, following yesterday's ferocious reaction to this deal in Geneva, which was led by Prime Minister Netanyahu, then we heard from the Foreign Minister, we heard from the Defense Minister, all of them saying that this was a historic mistake and that the West had been hoodwinked and fooled by the Iranians into allowing them to enrich uranium. Today, we're hearing a slight moderation of those views from other parts of Israeli society. The new leader of the Israeli Labour Party and the leader of the opposition, Yitzhak Herzog, has called on the government today to dial back its rhetoric and not to go for this full-blown confrontation with Israel's Western allies and with the United States. In the newspapers, we're seeing commentators saying, look, this isn't all bad. The front page headline of Yediot Achronot, which is the inspections and daily tests, and he says that's a major achievement. In the Haaretz Daily, we've had an editorial saying that Israel should give this agreement a chance. And we've had commentators, most notably those who themselves were born in Iran and are of Persian background, who say they understand the thinking, they understand the culture of Iran better than most Israelis, and they're saying this is an achievement, the Israelis can get something out of this deal, and that the Israelis should try and look at the cup half full rather than the cup half empty.
All right, many thanks indeed, Matthew. Our correspondent Matthew Kalman there reporting to us from Jerusalem.